Being a self-taught artist can be quite challenging, especially when it comes to figuring out how to learn on your own. I've received a few requests to make a video on how I've been planning my own art studies, so today I'm going to share that with you. Before we get started, if you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm Rachel, a mostly self-taught multimedia artist, sharing my artist journey and what I've learned along the way. If you're not already and you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe so that you can see future videos like this. And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you're either someone who is already teaching themselves art in some capacity, or maybe you're someone who is debating if they want to go to school for art or try to teach themselves. Now, I'm not here to try and ruin anyone's dreams of going to college for art. If that's your dream and you can reasonably afford it, then by all means, you. But if you've seen some of my previous videos, you know I have less than positive feelings about college art classes based off of my experience with them. I have a full video I can try to link where I talk about my art journey, but the long story short of it is that when I graduated high school, which was now 10 years ago, it was definitely the norm to go to college right after school, so that's what I did. I did a total of 2 years at 2 different state universities as an art major, and for the most part, I was very disappointed in my art classes, especially considering the insane cost of college, so I dropped out. I've known other people who've had similar experiences, and I've also known people who had very different experiences. So it probably doesn't apply to every person or school, but again, this is just my thoughts on it. What I do know, though, is that the cost of higher education has continued to increase, and we are very lucky to live in a time now where we have so many more resources available to us through the internet. I mean, way more than existed when I left high school a decade ago. But I also know that not having the structure of school and not knowing what to study or where to start can prove incredibly challenging. I've done a lot of things since I left school, but I will admit that while I continued making art, I didn't take studying art seriously until pretty recently. So, how did I finally start studying art seriously? The first and most important thing was figuring out what exactly I needed to learn, starting with drawing fundamentals, which I know for some reason a lot of artists have resistance to this. I know I certainly did, maybe because it can be kind of tedious, but since I started studying the fundamentals, I've noticed the biggest improvement in my art. I think a good starting off point for the studying of fundamentals is this book by Brent Eviston. He also has online classes, and there's some other good online classes out there that I'll talk about later. So aside from just drawing foundations, which I'm considering to be things like line making, drawing with form, observational drawing, perspective, and basic lighting concepts, some other things I wanted to learn are animal anatomy, since I'm primarily an animal artist. Also, human anatomy is just something I think that is beneficial for all artists to learn. I also wanted to improve on my color theory and visual development. And lastly, I wanted to take some oil painting classes or learn more about oil painting because that's something I've enjoyed doing and have always struggled with trying to figure out on my own. So this, of course, is just my list and yours might look different. After I figured out what I needed to learn, I started figuring out resources. Books can be a great resource, especially since you can look for them at secondhand stores and libraries, making them a really affordable option. I have a whole video on books I recommend that I'll also try and link in the description. There's also all sorts of online resources like I mentioned earlier. You can find free videos on YouTube or affordable options through sites like Patreon or Skillshare, Domestika, things like that, just to name a few. But with all of those, I would be a little bit more careful and do your research into who is teaching them and be a little bit more discerning because while there's great material out there, there's also some that can be not great, and I've definitely wasted time and money on some of those, so just be cautious of that. There's also now some online learning sites that are structured a little bit more like academies. These tend to be a little bit more expensive, but definitely a lot cheaper than college. I can't speak to all of them, but I did actually sign up for New Masters Academy at the end of last year, and no, I am not sponsored by them, though honestly I would love to be because I do really enjoy them. I definitely wish something like this had existed 10 years ago. What I really like about them is that they have a wide variety of classes taught by professional artists. there were actually artists I was already familiar with on there, so I did really like that. And they have options to complete tracks, so kind of like being in school, you can pick a track and just go through it doing all the lessons, which if you don't know what to be studying or are early on in your art studies, I think that's a really cool option. Or you can also do what I'm doing, which is just pick which classes you want to take and just do those ones, which makes it a much more customizable approach than traditional schooling. I started with this dynamic sketching course and it has been really amazing so far. Some other things to look into are mentorships and local classes. Literally one of the best art classes I ever took was taught at a community center, so I would definitely recommend checking out what's around you. So after figuring out what I wanted to focus on learning and what resources I was going to use, the next thing I did was broke down how I wanted to approach these. If you are doing some sort of pre-designed program, you probably don't need to worry about this step, but for me I found it really helpful because I was so overwhelmed once I looked at all the different things I felt like I needed to do, so this made it feel a lot more manageable. I decided that for me, the best way to break it down would be to divide it into 3 units, with each unit being about a year's worth of stuff that I wanted to learn. I decided that Unit 1 would be focused on fundamentals and have Unit 2 be focused more on advanced studies, and then Unit 3 I wanted to be focused on fine-tuning and refinement. Here you can see how I broke up these units. So I have my own little study guide I've made here on Notion, and here you can see what resources I'm using. Obviously, I'm using New Masters Academy for a lot of these, just because that's what I am focusing on here. And so I picked which classes I wanted to do and then put them in the units where I thought they would correspond. So I'm starting with kind of the more basic stuff and then getting a little bit more into that advanced stuff. I haven't really planned out Unit 3 yet, just because it's a little ways away and I'm not sure exactly what I want to be focusing on then. But I will plan that out in the future here. And then you can also see I have the subjects I discussed earlier labeled there. And then I also went ahead and planned these things out on my calendar, which is not something you have to do, but I like just to have that little bit of structure to help keep me on track. You can also see here I have linked all the websites that are applicable and listed the books I have. I've also broken things down into how many suggested weeks these classes are, and I have a progress bar. Again, this is just how I like to do it. Your approach might be different, but I just wanted to show you that I'm using this tool to plan my own education. Alright friends, well that is all today. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please let me know in the comments below. And also if you have any requests for future videos, you can let me know there as well. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so that you don't miss any future videos. Until next time, happy creating!